a college dropout with no financial license, no verifiable clients, and no trading record, sitting on an estimated fortune of over $500 million, exposed as a serial predator connected to presidents, princes, and intelligence agencies. And then, in the most surveilled federal jail cell in America, he was found dead. To understand how any of this was possible, we need to go back to the beginning. In 1973, a 20-year-old named Jeffrey Epstein walked through the doors of the Dalton School, one of the most prestigious private schools in Manhattan. He didn't have a college degree, he hadn't finished his studies at NYU or Cooper Union, and yet somehow he'd been hired to teach physics and mathematics to the children of New York's elite. The circumstances of his hiring remain murky. The school's headmaster, Donald Barr, either made the hire personally or departed just before it happened, depending on which account you trust. What isn't disputed is what happened next. Within 2 years, Epstein had leveraged those parent connections into a job at Bear Stearns, one of the most powerful investment banks on Wall Street, and that's where the story stops making sense. At Bear Stearns, Epstein rose fast, impressively fast. He made partner within 4 years, working under Chairman Ace Greenberg. He was reportedly brilliant with numbers, charming, confident, and unusually skilled at gaining the trust of wealthy people. But by 1981, he'd left the firm under circumstances that have never been fully explained. Some accounts say he was pushed out over regulatory issues. Others suggest he simply moved on. What he moved on to, though, is where the questions really begin. Epstein launched his own financial management firm, but it wasn't like any firm anyone had seen before. He claimed to work exclusively with clients who had assets of over $1 billion. No public filings, no visible client roster, no paper trail that any journalist or investigator has ever been able to fully verify. And his single most important relationship, the one that appears to have made everything possible, was with a man named Leslie Wexner. Wexner was the founder of the Limited and L brands, one of the wealthiest men in America, and he gave Epstein something extraordinary, sweeping power of attorney over his finances. But there was one detail nobody noticed at the time, a detail that would later rewrite the entire story. By the late 1990s, Epstein had assembled something that looked less like a financial operation and more like an infrastructure. His Manhattan townhouse, one of the largest private residences in New York, had been gifted to him by Wexner for a reported price of $1. He owned a ranch in New Mexico, a house in Palm Beach, an apartment in Paris, and a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Little St. James. Now here's where it shifts. Multiple sources, staff members, visitors, and later investigators described these properties as being wired with surveillance equipment, hidden cameras, recording systems, bedrooms that were monitored. Think about that. A man with no verifiable source of income builds a network of luxury properties across multiple countries and fills them with hidden cameras. This wasn't a financial operation, this was a collection apparatus, and the guest lists at these properties read like a who's who of Western power: politicians, scientists, royalty, tech billionaires, Hollywood figures. Epstein wasn't just socializing with these people. According to flight logs and property records, he was hosting them, repeatedly, in surveilled environments. In 2005, Palm Beach police began investigating Epstein for the sexual abuse of underage girls. The evidence was overwhelming. Dozens of victims came forward. Detectives built a case that should have put Epstein away for life. But then, something unprecedented happened. In 2007, federal prosecutor Alexander Acosta, who would later become U.S. Secretary of Labor, negotiated what became known as the Sweetheart Deal. Epstein pleaded guilty to a single state charge of soliciting prostitution from a minor. He served 13 months in a private wing of a county jail, with work release that allowed him to leave for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. But the most disturbing part of the deal wasn't the sentence. It was a clause buried in the non-prosecution agreement that granted immunity not just to Epstein, but to any potential co-conspirators, named or unnamed, past or future. Acosta later reportedly told the Trump transition team when asked about the deal, quote, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." This claim, first reported by the Daily Beast in 2019, has never been officially confirmed or denied by any intelligence agency, and Acosta has not elaborated further. But if even partially true, it would explain nearly everything that didn't add up. Now, there is a version of this theory that goes further, significantly further. In 2019, a former Israeli military intelligence operative named Ari Ben-Menashe publicly claimed that Epstein had been recruited by Israeli intelligence to run a sexual blackmail operation targeting powerful figures. According to Ben-Menashe, Epstein's handler was the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father, Robert Maxwell, was a known intelligence asset who died under mysterious circumstances in 1991. It's a staggering claim, and it needs to be treated with extreme caution. Ben-Menashe is a controversial figure with his own credibility issues, and no second source has corroborated his specific allegations. No intelligence agency has confirmed any link, but here's what makes it impossible to fully dismiss. The circumstantial architecture fits. The surveillance infrastructure, the untraceable wealth, the immunity deal, the connections to power that no financier could reasonably explain, and the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman convicted of trafficking girls for Epstein, was indeed the daughter of a confirmed intelligence asset. None of this is proof, but it forms a pattern. And that pattern raises a question investigators still cannot answer. Who was protecting Jeffrey Epstein, and why? On August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. The official ruling was suicide by hanging. He had been placed on suicide watch after an incident on July 23rd, but was removed from that watch roughly 6 days later, on July 29th. By the night he died, he was on a lower level of observation in a special housing unit. His cellmate had been transferred out. The 2 guards assigned to check on him every 30 minutes had both fallen asleep, and later pleaded guilty to falsifying records. And both surveillance cameras outside his cell malfunctioned that night. Both of them. The man who could have exposed the most powerful blackmail network in modern history, dead, in a federal facility, under conditions that a federal judge later called a perfect storm of negligence. Whether Epstein killed himself or was killed, the result was the same. The secrets he carried, the names, the recordings, the operations, died with him, or were buried with him. And that detail nobody noticed about Leslie Wexner. In 2019, Wexner publicly claimed that Epstein had misappropriated vast sums of his money. The man who gave Epstein everything suddenly wanted the world to know he was a victim too. We may never know what Jeffrey Epstein truly was, predator, asset, or both, but the fact that so many powerful institutions worked so hard to look the other way, that tells us something. Maybe not about Epstein, but about the world he operated in. And the dark ledger has many pages. Some of them are sealed, some of them are classified, and some of them are waiting to be opened.